we're getting a little bit of an idea of where we might be headed once we were wrapping up our winter conditioning program. So we started to kind of get some ideas down on how we might approach it if we were going to have to stay at home for a while. So we've done everything from set up traditional plans for guys who might have weight rooms available to coming up with body weight exercises and strongman type kind of exercises. And then we were going to do is reach out to the guys to find out exactly what they have available and how we can help guide them through the equipment that they do or may not have.
Hey, Lou, Nico Hefflinger with Fox, Illinois. I'm sure you've seen a lot of the videos guys have posted online of their various home workouts. I saw Doug Kramer had one of him pushing a truck yesterday. How does it feel when you kind of see some of the older guys, posting some videos of their workouts to maybe kind of inspire some of those younger players while they're at home?
I absolutely love it, and I want more of it. I think it's great that these guys are doing things. You've got Kirby Joseph running in the sand pit. You've got Bebe squatting with water bottles. Doug Kramer pushing a truck. So I've got all sorts of things going on. I've got Quan Martin benching with tires and rims, and they have definitely surpassed my creativity. That's for sure. And it's really exciting to see how much it matters to these guys to find a way to continue to stay the course on everything that we have set coming up for our season.
Hey, Lou, it's Jerry.
Lou, this is
24/7 Sport. Hope you're well. I'm just wondering, how you and your staff, what have you had to go back to, or how have you guys kind of gotten together and come up with ideas? What have you kind of used, or what kind of resources have you used?
What I tell you, we just kind of right now, have to go off our experiences. No, this was never in the grand scheme of how to progress guys, in a program, follow this progression to be successful. So this is brand new to us. So we're kind of going back to some of the things that we did maybe when we were younger and didn't have the amount of equipment that we had, and the things that we've had to see and adapt to, and kind of trying to exploring different types of training methods that are out there right now. Again, I mentioned strongman, for example. We're going to look at CrossFit as well, and just some of the things where guys might have some type of weight. They can do it for a whole lot of reps, and they can add some type of activity to it as well. So the creativity right now that we'll sit and talk about, my staff and I, is key. And, that type of experience, drawing back on the things that we have done ourselves back in the day when we might have not had an incredible facility like we do now, to what's latest and greatest, and how we can incorporate these things to pass down to our players.
If you guys are able to get together in the summer, how does that plan change, or whenever you guys are able to get back, just to ramp them up for a season?
Well, that's going to be interesting. If we can get back and start our June program on time, then we're going to go back to exactly how we progress our guys, and for a summer, getting ready for a camp. If they tell us maybe July is the starting point, and camp still starts on the same day, but now we got 4 weeks. So we'll have to adjust to that on what is going to be most important for general fitness to get our guys in some type of preparation to get ready for camp. So we're kind of waiting to see what we are given, and hopefully it all lands, perfectly to what we're already accustomed to. But we're ready to adapt and make the proper changes based on whatever it is that comes forward.
Hey, Lou, this is Joey Wagner with the Decatur Herald Review. I'm just curious how long it takes to develop a plan for each player. I mean, I'm assuming there's time to figure out exactly what they have available, and I guess how much time is dedicated for each player for you guys to develop, what they need to do?
Well, fortunately, a great question. Fortunately, I've got 4 other assistants who do an incredible job. And we break it down by certain position groups. So one strength coach right now is responsible for all our linemen. That's Big Will. So what we're doing with Will is he's communicating with all the linemen to find out what it is that they have. And if it comes down to pushing a truck, then let's go push a truck. And if you got an opportunity to be in a weight room, then we have a traditional plan that we have set ready to follow for our guys to follow. If it's body weight exercises, we have some ideas as well ready to go. So basically, we've got a lot of time to sit at home and plan these things out. So it doesn't take as long knowing that we already have an idea of what we're shooting for. And we had an idea running into this, preparing for this, back right before we left from winter conditioning. So it's been, really interesting to keep our guys ready to go. And it's not as time consuming as we were anticipating.
This is Heather Dinage at ESPN. Can you give me some specific examples, maybe just off the top of your head, of what you're asking an offensive lineman to do versus a receiver or a quarterback, the lengths of these workouts, the amount of reps, things like that? When you say strongman, beyond some of the things you already mentioned, what are you asking them to do? Just looking for some more specific details as far as, is this an hour a day? What exactly goes into that hour?
Yeah, exactly. So, what we'll do with that is we're going to set everything up. We want our guys to warm up. We always want our guys to do some type of midsection core exercise. Doesn't matter what position they play. We all want them to do the same type of warm-up, some dynamic activity, increased core temperature, increased heart rate, and things such as that. So we're always going to make sure our guys have some type of preparation before they start doing their activity. Then the guys who can do things traditionally, are going to do those exercises that we want for them to do. And in this time period, we're in spring football, we're working out, and we're not necessarily in the same mindset as we would be in the winter, in the summer, which is, overloading weight that's coming at you every week. It's more of, exercising to get into technique, because this time of the year, football is going to be most important. So that's what's great about this time period right now, is the guys can just work on deloading and just work on reps and their form and their technique and their exercises. So for that part of it, for spring ball. Now, obviously, the demands are different on the field, so the workouts have got to be a little bit different. So we want our big, strong guys to try to concentrate on more strength-oriented exercises. Like Doug Kramer, pushing that truck is just a great example of how to do that. If he's got some heavier things to lift around the house as well, then we want him to try to do some of those heavier activities as well. As opposed to our skill guys, we still want them to try to do some muscle stimulant type kind of movements, but we want them to go out and run and continue to run. That's their strength. That's their emphasis. If they can jump boxes, if they can jump rope, if they can run stadium stairs, whatever it is that they can get to continue to work on that fast twitch, that's exactly what we want to do with that. Our quarterbacks, we're going to send them a little bit more of their balance on what they do for acceleration, power for the shoulder, to deceleration strength for the rotator cuff of it. Their exercises will involve the torque and twist to manage, how they throw that ball, and hopefully can increase velocity and stay injury-free. So the preparation of the shoulder and the amount of throwing that those guys are going to do, that workout's got to be tailored up a little bit different as well, too. So the demands are different, so there's going to be some variation in their workouts as well. So that's, how we're going about setting that up. And again, the reps and the sets, fortunately, at this time of the year for us, we're still looking at it as if they were in spring football. So we're not going to overload, and we want our guys to hit some moderate reps, some moderate sets, and just to continue to exercise and stay fit and ready for hopefully when we get back in the summer, it gives us our base, so they're under the proper supervision of how we can start to load and go from that point.
And beyond the pictures and videos, is there a way that they can, I mean, literally check a box? I did 20 sit-ups. I did, 20 push, whatever it might be today. How are you holding them accountable otherwise, and just how much trust is involved that they're not sitting on the couch watching Netflix all day?
Oh boy, I tell you what, that's a great one. And I tell you, fortunately with the videos and the texting and things such as that, sending clips. We're even having guys jump on a scale and show us what they're, with the FaceTime with that as well. And like in every other program, we got some guys who are super highly motivated that we might only reach out to them maybe once every 2 weeks because we know exactly what they're doing when they're away from here. And then we've got the team, and we're reaching out to the team approximately, once a week and touching base, making sure they're staying the course and moving on. And then unfortunately, you got some guys who are a little bit not as motivated that we have to, those are the guys that make it a little more challenging when it comes to, let's see that FaceTime, let's see that video. And that's basically the extent of what we're trying to use for the technology at this moment in time.
Hey, Lou, this is Chris Hummer with 24/7 Sports. You touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'm wondering, do you feel like there is a window of time or a runway you need as a staff to get your athletes safely back on the field ahead of the season? How much time do you kind of feel like you need ahead of a season to kind of get guys ready?
You know what, I tell you, that's interesting because my staff and I just started to bring that up as well, too, is what do we think would be the latest, the minimum amount of time that we would need to get our guys back? And unfortunately, there's just nobody in competitive football that has run those studies to say, okay, let me take my team out of commission and let's train them for 2 weeks going into camp and let's see if that's enough time. Or let's just train for 4 weeks for this study and to see if that's enough time. Or is it 6 weeks? Or nobody's going to do that. We're all going to take as much time as the NCAA will give us, and we're going to start going to work as soon as we can possibly go. So what is the most effective time period that a football player is going to need to get into camp and go and hopefully make it through that thing injury free with no problems and no issues? There's not a nice cookie cutter type of program to follow on that, unfortunately. So we do know that a few years back ago when the NFL changed a little bit of what they were doing, where they removed some of their summer conditioning and so on and so forth, that next thing you know, going into the season, there was an enormous amount of Achilles that they were experiencing. Now, was that because of the preparation? It's hard to say, but there was definitely a change in that system on what they did to get there. So, yeah, it's going to be important. Do we look back at, just some of the studies that require just for general fitness? Is it 4 weeks of what our guys would need, as a minimum? So we're hoping that, again, Coach said at some point we have to rely on the experts on that. And maybe NCAA will have some type of a cutoff to say, if we're not back in doing this organized by this particular date, then, here is the option or, whatever else might come from there. But, yes, we do need time to prepare. Guys do need to train. They need to strain. They need to work out. They need to stress and everything that is going to get them prepared for the stimulus of football camp. Because when we get out there, I mean, it's going to be as intense as it would ever be. So, so that's a great question, and we are trying to find out exactly how we would approach that. Hopefully, we jump right back into it, nice and neat. And start summer exactly how we need to do it. But that is a concern for us right now.
Could you, I know the answer based on your statement there, but could you see a scenario at all where it's tenable for essentially guys to show up from their houses during the summer and just start training camp right away?
If they were going to do that, I think back in the day when Coach was talking about, the old, back in, and I remember those days as well too. Is next thing you know, guys would just show up and they'd go into camp. And one of the things about training camp back then is, you had 2-a-days and you had 3-a-days for some people, and some of those sessions were actually conditioning phases and conditioning sessions. Now, I would say that if that was the ultimate cutoff, is that you're going to have to report, August 1 or August 6, whatever that might be. And I think they have to allow for that as well too. That not only can they just do the football, but they're going to have to work on some type of preparation. I think all those things are definitely on the table when it comes to revisions and to adapting and improvising. But yeah, I think that's definitely out on the table right now to find out every option of, most importantly, the safety and well-being of these guys to get them prepared for a season.
Even before the pandemic really took over, you have been really active on social media from the weight room and kind of pushing out what your guys have been doing. I'm curious, what is the role for you of social media and accountability, or just even in the weight room and what these kids do?
You know what? I tell you, it's important, and I want these guys. We started to kind of use it basically as just a training tool. So, here's the video of you doing this squat, and if you missed it, this is why. Did you dip? You didn't have your upper body in the right position, or did you stagger on your stance? Or same thing with the cleans. Did you not effectively hit your triple extension, so on and so forth? So it kind of started with that. And the next thing you know, it just started to capture a lot of the excitement of the accomplishments and the unity and the support of the team. Where I said, I think this is important to get out there. And, and this day and age, this is just where we're at, and I kind of make reference to, my folks couldn't stand the music that I was listening to growing up, and eventually they had to, continue to listen to that for a while. Not that they really enjoyed it, and it's just the day and age that we're in right now. I have to try to adapt to how to communicate and reach some of these guys, let them know that we're supporting them and to motivate them, and so I think the social media is very important right now.
Coach, this is Bob Osmussen. How important and how helpful is it for you to have a lot of older guys on the team? How much has that been help going forward?
I mean, that's very, when we're looking at it, we talk about that a lot in the weight room. Do we want to be player-led or do we want to be coach-led? I think coach-led will make us a good team, but player-led makes us great teams. You look back at the experiences that we've had and the success we've had here before, a lot of these guys, took it upon themselves to do extra things, watch more film, go out and do more walkthroughs. And those are the things that they took upon themselves. And, it had great success. And it's not just that particular group of guys, but it's, our experience in seeing things throughout the country. When guys are more motivated to lead each other, there seems to be a lot more success with that. There's a lot more buy-in than when it's a coach-led and now you're forced to or pushed or motivated to as opposed to your teammate. We'll talk about it all the time in the weight room. When we can say it to a guy and it'll mean something some way, but when your teammate says it to you, now they've got your attention. So, because you surely don't want to let your teammate down. So there's a big difference between being player-led and coach-led in our eyes. And I think we got a great group of guys right now, like with Jake Hansen and Doug Kramer, to lead that team in the right direction. So we're very excited about it with this particular group.
Thanks, Coach.
Lou, this is Gabby. This is Gabby Hardy from the Daily Rhino.
Yes.
Just with guys who need more of the nutritional aspect of being on campus, have you guys been able to get them things like kind of like we talked about, protein bars and supplements, things like that, or have they been kind of on their own?
No, Gabby. Actually, they have been on their own for a little bit, and then we actually this week started something. We got approval to be able to send them supplements, and it's going to be primarily for the guys that we concentrated on this winter that have specific weight goals. There's 9 guys on our team right now that we were really focusing on to change some body composition and to change their increase their lean muscle mass. So it was really interesting when we were talking about that what is it that they could possibly do at home, to have this type of convenience for them, to be able to do this. And so we got that going this week, and we're going to be able to send them some extra supplementation to help with their overall caloric intake for the day, to hopefully continue to move them in the right direction of meeting their weight goals for the season.
And then, have you guys come across anybody who has no equipment at their house and really can't do any home workouts, and how have you guys handled that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, there are a few guys that don't have, anything at the house. But, that's where the creativity has to come along. Can you find a sledgehammer in the garage? Can you, get out and just skip the lines on the cement, outside, and do some footwork drills on that? And at the end of the day, the biggest thing we want our guys to do is stay active. So if they can go for a jog, if they can find a field and they can just hit a few strides, whatever it takes for them to continue working on their fitness goals. It doesn't necessarily always have to be about lifting. We would love for that to be, but we'll take whatever we can get at this point. And so whatever it is that we can do, no doubt.
Thanks, Lou.
Sure.
Hi, Lou. Peyton Lessner with Illini Sports Night. I know you talked a little bit about how you're not necessarily thinking about when is the latest that everyone can get back in session because no one's run those studies. But would you mind, I guess, describing a little bit of what a normal year would have looked like? What maybe last year, for instance, what were the key dates and the key, time within the summer that was so important in terms of ramping up towards training camp and then the regular season? Thank you very much.
Sure, absolutely. As far as those studies are concerned, we've not come across them. If they're out there, we're still looking for them, but we have not encountered anybody who would have sat there and agreed to chopping down their time with their players to run a particular short-term study on how long it can take to get in shape. No, I know I wouldn't volunteer to do that. But yeah, this was this particular time of the year for us, football is going to be the emphasis. And we intentionally want our guys to deload at this particular time because of the amount of heavy overloading weight that they've been using during the winter. So, the silver lining in this right now is this is a great time for their bodies or joints and everything else to recover and recuperate from all the amount of the heavy stimulus that they've been doing for almost 8 weeks that they did this winter. So the fact that if they can just continue to exercise like we would during spring ball at this moment in time is absolutely great. So for us, the silver lining is that at this particular time of the year, guys would just be working on exercises, continuing to have some type of stimulus and basically deloading from the intense work that they had been doing for the last 8 weeks. So that's what this particular phase would reach. Then after that, they would run into the summer break, and they'd get about 4 to 5 weeks off in the summer break. And we would expect something very similar to this on a take-home plan. Obviously, guys would have high school gyms to go to or regular fitness gyms to go to. And we'd maybe start off with lifting a couple of days a week, for the summer preparation during the summer vacation time. Just the fact that they don't lose everything, and then maybe start to gradually increase some running. But when we would start back in June, we're going to hit the floor running. June is a very important time period for us to start to prepare our bodies for camp. So the first phase in June would be our general fitness and conditioning. So our longer distances, like the runs that we call perimeters, which are about 300 yards, would be very important for us at that time period, building up, the turnover conditioning for their legs, the cardiorespiratory system, getting those things prepared, ready to go, so that once we finish June, that we would start to move into July, which is definitely going to be a lot more sprint, change of direction, football-oriented, speed, that type of preparation, which would transition us into August. So that's what we would be looking at. Now, if we had to cut that back down, based on the amount of time that we'd be given, we'll have to try to pull together what would be the best of both worlds to get us to the right situation or the right condition for camp.
I'm Maven, Sports Illustrated. Can you describe winter workouts and what you saw from a results standpoint on that, and if guys had their legs under them because it's the first time they've gone through a season through late December, and then boom, they're turning around for winter workouts? What kind of results, individual PBs did you see? Did you like the results you saw coming out of winter workouts?
That's a great question. I love the results because we talked about it during our bowl prep. Was good teams get better and bad teams just go home. But these guys could have had potentially 6 to 8 weeks off if we would not have gone through bowl prep and training for a bowl. And then by the time they'd return in January, potentially could have been somewhere from 6 to 8 weeks off, and that is a long time. That is starting again, from ground zero. And, that is, so as opposed to this year, they had 4 weeks off, and that was just perfect. So what we noticed is that guys, seem to respond better and get to where we want them to get to in stages of these lifts faster because their downtime was less. So is it important to have some off time? Absolutely. That's part of the training process. You go hard, you go heavy, you take time off, then you go light, then you go medium, then you go heavy, you take time off, and you hit that cycle over and over and over again. And that's how you sustain the health and safety of the athlete's lifting career. So this was absolutely great to have 4 weeks off. It was just enough that we were able to jump back in the winter and have tremendous numbers. So we were actually working on comparing the numbers from this year to last year and had just significant amount of PRs and personal bests and great games. And hopefully we can get back in the office at some point to finish all that up. But it was a real good winter phase for us when it came down to specific numbers. I think we only had maybe 1 or 2 guys that had to do extra work for not meeting weight goals, and things such as that. So the buy-in, and then, having that success of going to a bowl, encourage this team that, okay, now we know what it takes to be a 500 team. We know what that takes. So, this summer we're planning on trying to be better than that. So the workout is going to be a little bit better than that. We got to do better than being just a bowl team. So that's what we're trying to prepare with there as well. So that's how I thought the winter was great. We had some incredible numbers. We had some leaders, doing their job as leaders. We had some great buy-in. And then just a lot of good success with guys, reaching some personal bests.